I am speaking on what it does. First of all, I have a riddle for you. What creates planets out of nothing, manifests miracles on a daily basis, and turns our thoughts to things? Answer? The law, the thing itself, all that. The way? Our thoughts, yes. But behind our thoughts is the thing itself, God, this all-encompassing power. Ernest Holmes said, we make a riddle out of simplicity. And so I had to. And so sometimes we complicate things. We make it more confusing than it needs to be, when in reality, this thing itself is simple and pure. I want to read you directly from his writings, and perhaps you can be the judge of that. In The Thing Itself, on page 42, he states, "Let us do away with a ponderosity of thought and approach the thing simply and quietly. It is the nature of the universe to give us what we are able to take. It cannot give us more. It has given all. We have not yet accepted the greater gift. Spiritual wisdom says that God manifests through everything and is incarnated by all people, that all is divinity and nature herself in the body of God. The mechanical laws of nature are set and immutable, but the spontaneous recognition of these laws gives us the power to bring them into practical use in everyday life and experience." Now that's key, because Ernest Holmes wanted us to use these principles for practical, everyday use. And so on that, we can kind of compare it to gravity and electricity. They're mechanical laws that we can use to either help us or hurt us, depending on our beliefs about them and how we are using them, because ultimately, Ernest Holmes wanted us to have free will. He wanted us to be able to play in this field of life and learn from our own experiences, our own mistakes, if you will. But in truth, we know that there are never really mistakes. They always lead us to the next place we need to be. So given this free will, I want to just acknowledge something that happened yesterday, and the free will of all these expressive people. We had over 600 marches yesterday around the globe. And to me, that was thrilling, because what I marched for was equality, truth, unity, and respect. And this is where it can be kind of a double-edged sword, if you will, because sometimes we march what we think is for something, but then in truth, we're holding this thought that we don't want, and so we end up creating something that we don't want, because that's the way the law works. If we're holding in mind hate, but thinking that we need to be more loving, the universe will act on what is the predominant vibration within us. It's a very powerful thing. Now, maybe being out in public around a lot of people is not where you find that connection, that unity with spirit or the planet. I also read about how he loved nature, and for me, nature is synonymous with God. So I often go out in nature to find my connection that allows what it does to work through me. And so about a week ago, I went hiking in the Upper Park through this burnt-out manzanita forest from the last season's fires. And it was amazing, because despite the illusion of death, I saw sprigs of green shooting through these blackened branches. And it reminded me that that's what it does. It holds life, and it brings life through the illusion of death, through the illusion of destruction and decay, that there is this power that comes through it all, that reclaims our best and highest good when we tap into it. I also think that Ernest Holmes, had he been alive today, his birthday was yesterday, by the way, so we are honoring him in January by recognizing his truths. But I think he would have altered his verbiage slightly, and he would have been more aware of the science that we now have behind this teaching. He didn't know about quantum physics back then. He didn't know about string theory. And yet, while not complicating it, all it basically is his teachings backed up by science. And that's why I'm excited. Once again, I'm going to read you a little excerpt from E squared, which I'm teaching the class upon, which you just have today to sign up for. But listen to Pam Grout's words and find your own similarities. To put it another way, thought is creative. The thoughts you hold in your mind, both conscious and unconscious, create what you see in your life. Every thought has a certain vibration. It boomerangs back to you according to its pitch, intensity, and depth of feeling. Your thoughts show up in your life in proportion with their constancy, intensity, and power. So whatever vibration you're holding most strongly in your being, that's what you're attracting in your life. I saw the movie Hidden Figures last night. Anybody see that? There was one line, I'm not going to ruin it for you in case you want to see it, but in a conversation with this man and the woman, the man said, we have to see where we want to go and hold that, knowing that we'll be there. And he said, do you want to help me get to the moon? And she said, I'm already there. And I love that because that's what this teaching's about, to see it in your mind's eye. And so knowing that right now, I want everybody just to take a deep breath in again. Breathe in, and I want you to picture something that you truly desire in your heart. I want you to feel it. I want you to know it. I want you to feel it just vibrating through your entire being. Because this is how thoughts turn to things. And now as you open your eyes, I want to say this and not let it be confusing, but what it does is whatever we affirm when we declare the words, and so it is. So keep that in your consciousness as together we say, and so it is. And now I invite Andy up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Could you raise that screen for me, please, if you don't mind? Well, good morning, everybody. It's nice to see everyone, as always. There's a Buddhist quote that kind of goes like this. You know, if you want to know the past, look at the present. If you want to know the future, look at the present. Deepak Chopra paraphrases this in another way, and he says, if you want to know what you've been thinking, actually what you've been believing in the past, look at your body. Look at your life. If you want to know what your body or your life will be like in the future, look at what you're thinking and what you're believing now. So keeping that in mind, we're going to talk about what it does, as Reverend Lisa had brought up. What it does is it acts on what you have come to believe. As I used to tell the kids in Fun Day School, not here, but other places, is that, God always says yes. You know, whatever you bring up in your mind, God says yes. So I asked them to raise the screen because what we have here is actually the teaching symbol that we use in all classes in Science of Mind. And even though it's not written up there, I mean, this entire thing is you. And of course, you've got the mind and the soul, and then and on the bottom is the out-picturing. It's what you're bringing, it's what you end up with in your life. It's what you manifest. So up there in the top portion in the mind, now you may affirm prosperity, and how you deserve it and how life is all wonderful. But down here in the bottom is what you're out picturing in your life. And what you may be out picturing, what might be coming out down there is that, oh, you're struggling to pay your bills, you don't have enough money to enjoy, you don't have this or you don't have that. And so what's happening is right here in the middle is where it's probably the most important thing, because this is where the law is functioning. This is in the subconscious, and this is where Ernest Holmes calls it the subjective. And what you truly believe, what you've come to learn, that's what's in the middle there. And this is what's going to outpicture unless you're really working on it. So the whole thing is that what you truly believe is you may believe that there's lack in your life, you don't deserve it, and all of these things. So obviously it's in the subconscious, and you're not aware of these things. That's why it's in the subconscious. If you were aware of it, it wouldn't be there. So certainly not in the subconscious anyway. So how do these beliefs and how do these things get in there that you need to filter through to experience all of the joy and all of the things that the universe wants you to have? Well, perhaps as a child you had parents that you heard them arguing about money, and it's not enough, and it's not this and not that, and you came to believe in your child mind, in that little thing, it's written on there that somehow you're poor. You don't have enough. Maybe you came from a blue-collar background, and there was always things of... Here's the crazy thing, is that we put on our kids all of our own craziness, whether we know that or not, and you got it all from your parents. It was all, just no... If they don't know you're doing it, if they're doing it, you don't know you're doing it. So all of these fears are all kind of just pushed down on one another. So that's where it's all written, and you're not really sure. So perhaps it wasn't even about money. Maybe somewhere or something is that you've come to believe somehow that you don't deserve love. You don't deserve loving relationships. It could be almost anything, and it doesn't matter whether it's true or not, but it's there. So. And even sometimes it's some innocuous things. You got, you overhear the adults talking, and oh yeah, that runs in the family. We all have bad backs. We all have this. We all have that, and that just gets kind of written on there in that little slate. So it's really interesting about these things. It may have come from this incarnation, maybe a previous incarnation, if you believe in those things, and. As an experience, let me explain this to you. It's kind of a simple thing, but I've mentioned it before in other talks where my mother died when I was 5.5 years old. My father was a really hard-working guy. He would get up, before the crack of dawn. He was out the door at dawn and didn't come home until sunset. He worked very hard. He made good money. I mean, he was a union carpenter for all his life, and most of his life, and. Even though, as an adult, I look at it and he made real good money. When you spread it out over 13 siblings and things, it ain't so much, So, so anyway, and I remember my dad, when I was a child, I remember my dad as always being so cranky and always, it was really tough. When I needed something and I would have to go bother him for it, and he was kind of, he would come home from work, he would eat dinner, go sit in the living room, read the newspaper, turn the TV on for a while. He'd go to bed early, and that was it. And if you bothered him in between, it was, oh my God. And so as this little kid, I used to think, my God, he's always angry, and he's always this, and he's always that, and it was, and I became afraid of my father. I really did. And it's interesting because being in this big family and being at the end, my older brothers and sisters, my older siblings, well, by the time my mother died, they were, the older girls were married, and my older brothers, they were in the Navy, and they were off to war. And but they had a different life. So one day I'm talking to them, and they're saying, oh yeah, but Dad was, he was fun. He was, he loved to laugh, and he'd have the boys over for playing cards, and he loved to go to dances and did all of this stuff here. boy, that wasn't in my life. I never saw that. All I remember is his anger and being all of this stuff here. And it wasn't until much later in life that I started realizing, as I was doing more work on myself, is that he's married to this woman who bears actually 16 children for him. There was 2 of them that died. He bears all these children. He loved her very, very much. She dies, and there's this giant hole in his life. And for the next 10 years, he is depressed. He is just completely withdrawn. And he is all of these things. And this is what I came to witness from the time I was 5.5 until around I was 16. And somehow he broke out of his shell, and his brother dragged him to some social or some dance, and things started changing. But for all that time, he was in mourning. And all that time, he was depressed. And I never realized that. But in my childhood mind, all I remember is that. But then as I started kind of a whole healing process for myself, I started realizing that he was never mean to me. And my oldest sister became the matriarch of the family. We lived back east. We had we lived in a 3-story house. There was 3 apartments, and she lived on the top floor with her family. But she was the matriarch of the family. She always made sure that my dad took care of, that she took care of my dad, make sure that my dad took care of us. And there was never a summer that I didn't have a good time. He would take us to the movies. He would take us to the fair. He would take us to all of these things here, you know. And but in that childhood mind, my remembrance is what hurt, I guess, and that's what I was focused on, and that's what was in the subconscious. So how does this play out, right, for me? Because this is all about. It sounds like it's all about my dad. Well, what this comes out to be for me in my life is that, well, it's one thing that I had, and I still have a little bit of a problem with it, is I can't stand confrontation. I can't stand yelling or anything, even in a movie when the characters are screaming at each other and everything else. I just tense up. Of course, violence. I can't handle violence either, which was probably good things. But anyway, yeah, when I think about it, I don't like gory movies. But anyways, but this plays out in other things. So with these things, it impacts how how I've dealt with people. You know, I was afraid to, afraid to speak my truth. So rather than speak my truth, if I was in some confrontational thing, I would withdraw. I would get quiet. And these kind of things here until I started learning that. Now I have to say, I had a very successful career, and in my career, even though I had even worked on that, but even though I knew that I would have to confront somebody, I would have to speak my truth things no matter what, how that came out. So I just kind of shoved all the other stuff down and just overcame that and went forward, and that worked until I finally realized, and you're never too old to learn. I just keep learning and learning. So, yeah, so that worked out very well. So that's the whole thing. So those things I became aware of as my subconscious. So here we are working on these things here. So how, you're not aware of these things that are in the subconscious, so how do you overcome things that you're not even aware of? This is the key. This is important. So if you're not manifesting the things that you want in your life, obviously there's something that's not it's not clicking, right? Something is not working. So you have to question, what is it that I really believe about the thing I'm trying to manifest in my life? So whether it's prosperity, or whether it's good health, or whether it's joy, or love, or romance, whatever it is, and it's not coming, and here I, beseeching and doing whatever I need to do, then I need to ask myself, what is it that I really believe about this? Now, you may not come up with an answer. That's the thing. You may not come up with the answer right away. It might take some work on your part to do that. However, here's the neat thing about it, is you can fool the mind. You really can. This is not necessarily fool it, but here's the thing. So even though you may not come on an immediate answer, you can still overcome the false belief, because that's what they really are, if they're false belief that you're embodying. And you need to affirm with certainty and conviction that there's nothing more powerful in you, nothing more powerful in you than God. No illness, no lack, nothing in that subconscious is more powerful in you than what you are. God, I am. That is what it is. And when you can affirm that, and you start feeling it, and you know that, and you start writing the files of these positive files of the truth of who you are, then when those files become greater than those false beliefs that you have, that file of false belief, you will start manifesting those things that you start pushing right through all of that, and you'll be manifesting those things that you really want to create in your life. You can set those false beliefs aside. You just have to know that they may be there, but that they have no power. They really don't. So that's the whole thing. And so that's what it does. That's how it works. Ernest Holmes says on page 44 of Science of Mind, by stating and feeling that our mind knows the truth about the thing we desire to know, in this way we draw the infinite mind into our mentalities for definite knowledge in some particular good. And he goes on to say on page 46 that we are surrounded by infinite possibility. It is goodness, life, and reason. In expressing itself through us, it becomes more fully conscious of its own being. Therefore, it wishes to express through us. As it passes into our being, it automatically becomes the law of our lives. In other words, when you fill that subconscious with the power of the divine truth, that there is nothing more powerful in you than God, then God says yes. And it responds to the law. The divine law, as Reverend Lisa pointed out, it's the same as natural law. Divine law, it flows to the path of least resistance. And that's what it does. So it is. Thank you. And now, Monte.
Thank you, Andy. So one of the tools we have in our teaching is called spiritual mind treatment. And what is spiritual mind treatment? And it is an affirmative thought that knows without any doubt that it is in itself true. So in our teaching, we are taught this 5-step process. And those 5 steps are helpful in moving the thought to a place of knowingness about whatever it is that you are treating. So it is a process for the medium between thought and whatever it is that you are out picturing. So I don't plan to review those 5 steps in this talk, but however, it's the knowingness that causes the thought to take form. And when we have that knowingness, it is like pouring a liquid molten into a mold of your choice and watching it take form. Your thought and your knowingness about that thought are a mold. So I listened to a TED Talk a while back. Connie sent me a link about a TED Talk. It was on happiness. And it stated that the biggest thing that blocks us from happiness is our mind's wandering. So when the mind wanders, we're not in the present. We're either in the past or we're in the future. So in reality, when we do that, when we go to the past, when our minds go off to the past and to the future, we're telling ourselves that it's not okay to be right here where we are. So it sends a subtle message that it's not okay to be happy. So we are literally abandoning ourselves from being right here to going somewhere else. So the more we can stay in the present and stay focused on what we are doing at the moment and what our current thoughts are in the moment, the more we are honoring who we are. And the more we begin to see who we really are is when we begin to see that incredible abundance, the infinite supply of anything that we could ever want existing right here where we are. So the more we move into that state of happiness, the more we are happy, the more gratitude we have. And the more gratitude we have, the more magnetism that is added to our thoughts, and creation happens. There is no lack of anything. So as we begin to know who we are, then our thoughts in that space can and do turn into the mold of our life. And actually, they are the mold of our life anyway. If you're not in a space of conscious control thought, then there's still thought. So, and that is exactly what it is, whether it's conscious thought or unconscious thought or subconscious thought. So if you have a lot of uncontrolled thought in your life, then you're going to have a lot of uncontrolled stuff in your life. Or at least the perception is that it is uncontrolled. So I want to repeat that again. It's the perception that it is uncontrolled. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with Bruce Lipton. Bruce Lipton and his work, he is a stem cell biologist that did most of his research through Stanford University. And he did it in the area of epigenetics. He was, his actual research was a forerunner of what they have termed epigenetics now. And his research shows that cells respond to the environment that they are in, not to the genes. So historically, we have talked about the genes controlling everything in our physical being. And Bruce Lipton, with his years of experience and his years of research, has been able to demonstrate over and over that genes control nothing. They are a blueprint, and they are only a blueprint. And they can be changed by the environment in which they exist. So what controls the environment? Our beliefs control the environment. Our beliefs and our thoughts control the environment. So our beliefs about the environment is what our cells are responding to, not the genes. So going back to what we are saying earlier about our thoughts are the mold that shapes our lives, Ernest Holmes cautions us to be careful not to think that because we make the mold that we must create the substance. The substance is already there. It already exists. So the peaceful, happy, abundant life that we're all striving for already exists. It's right here. We already have it. It is our thoughts that bring it into reality, into our lives, and gives it form. So with that, Andy's gonna come back up, and if you guys have any questions, there's Q&A session, and thank you.
Thank you, Monte. And thank you, Lisa, again. So any questions about anything that was brought up, or does it bring up anything for anybody? Yeah.
It's kind of a question, kind of an observation. Hearing at any given moment which part you're paying attention. Are you trying to look at your subconscious and understand why what out here is happening, or can you put your thoughts in a new place in your mold and create something different where that attention is going? So if you can speak to that.
Yeah, I'll speak to it unless somebody else does. But as I understand from what Monte is saying, you know, well, the mold is right there in the middle, right there in that sub level. So that's where we're really molding everything, right? So to me, it's more of a knowing how it works, right? And so. So I don't know that so much that it is focusing in the subconscious, but if you know that it's got to work itself through the subconscious, it's knowing that whatever you want to form, whatever form you want it to take, that's where it's going to happen. So what you believe and what you want to outpicture, you need to know that this is where it's going to be formed. So I don't know if that's answering your question, Sharon, or not.
It is. It's speaking to it, and if you don't know why what's happening is happening, you suggested looking at that subconscious.
Well, oh yeah. It's, well, at least question yourself. At least ask the question, and in asking that question, you're knowing, okay, well, gee, you know, why am I always getting this sickness or whatever? Why am I getting a cold every year? Because somehow I've told myself that, oh well, it's cold season and I'm going to get the cold, right? But where did I get that belief from? And to know that, well, maybe that's not, maybe just that's not so true. Just because I heard it someplace when I was a kid or whatever, that it wasn't so true. And I think also there's a thing in there where, especially if you've got it at home and you got it from your parents and everything else, there's still that little kid that says, well, you can't. My parents said it, so it must be true, and whether it is or not. So yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead.
I'd love to say that
Use the microphone.
it's.
Yeah, why don't you come up?
Anyway, I'd love to say that it's a process. It's not something that your subconscious mind is always there. It's always coming in. It's the ego part of yourself that is wanting to go somewhere else. So I would just say the more time you spend with yourself, that is your connection with your goodness. That is your connection with God. And it's not going to happen going home tonight and sitting with yourself for 15 minutes. It takes years of process, but that's where you're going to find it. So.
I wanted to add one more thing. Everybody has a different take on it, too. I don't believe we necessarily need to go in and rehash everything in our subconscious and figure out the root cause of everything, because I know for myself that all those events made me where I am today. So I don't need to go back necessarily and figure it out, dig it down and pull it out. I need to also focus on where I want to be. I need to set those new pipes, clean those pipes out, focus on what I want now, because we can never get to the bottom of some of the stuff that has happened in our lives. We add more to it by sometimes worrying about it and thinking, well, why did this happen? Often we get into a victim role. So my take on it is we need to focus afresh and believe that despite our past, we create our future. Any other questions? Okay, yeah. I think, wait, one more out there, yes.
I've heard Dr. Lipton speak. It was at Cal Park when we were over there one evening, a long time ago. And he said the way the cells operate, singularly and in the aggregate, we are in two modes. We are either in defense or we are in growth.
Yes, exactly. For the recording, he said, Dr. Lipton said that we're either in two modes, either in defense or in growth. And that's true, yes, of our brains. Our cells pick up on that. They don't know. I mean, they're finding so much with studies today, and you could confirm this too, but they can take a cell from one part of your body and it can grow the part, like in China, they're growing ears now out of these stem cell things that they were never an ear before. But now all of a sudden they're becoming an ear because that's what they've been instructed to do. They didn't know that at one time they were the leg or something like that. They have this potential within them, and I think that's key to take note of.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think if there's no more, one in the back. April,
Just
in the spring?
issue of where the emotions come in and the head and the heart connection. Because if you're just dealing in the thought process, the thinking process, I don't believe it's automatic.
Right, no, that's where you have to.
With
Right.
emotional.
You gotta feel it.
And that's where vibration, what you believe in the core, where the head meets the heart, that's what you attract. So you can't, as I said, just think, oh, happy thoughts, when at your core, you believe life sucks. Can I say that? So you have to, it's a whole package, you know, you resonate that core belief system. It's not about just thinking.
Exactly.
Thank you for bringing
Got
that
some
up.
questions over here.
Oh, yes.
Well, just like, your heart. You can feel a heartbreak in your heart.
Right.
You actually can feel it. So you're thinking it, but you're really aching in your heart.
Right. Yeah.
So it's the whole entire, it's not just your brain.
Right. Your body
It's
feels
your
it.
body. It's your spirit, your whole mind, body, spirit, just the whole connection.
Right, they can't be separated.
Right.
Right.
They're all one.
It's all one thing, yeah.
Yes. One more
Seems to
question.
me that just distinguishing that there could be another way to think is a big piece of like why we're all here.
Right.
Exactly.
Because we're talking about this stuff that never occurs to people.
Yes. And in a way, we don't like to say we're new thought, but it is a new way of thinking. And it's a new way of embracing possibilities instead of just being stuck in our stories.
You don't have to make the past wrong.
Right. I mean, I agree. Okay, I think we're kind of running out of time here. And do you want to add anything, Monte?
No, I'm,
Okay.
no.
Okay, great.
But just to kind of summarize with all the questions here that we did have, and I think it's kind of clear that, as Lisa was saying, is that you need to be thinking what it is that you actually want. And then my take on it was, if you're not getting what you want, it's not so much to, as Reverend Lisa said, you have to dig down and find out exactly what it is. You may never know for a long, long time, whatever it is. Just to be aware that, well, I'm not getting what I want, so what I need, so I need to be, I need to come back and say, and focus, and either focus more on what, and believing that yes, this is possible, and getting aligned with with it, and getting vibrationally aligned, because, and that's where the feeling comes in, and that's where all those things, and that's really where we're going to end up molding what we want. So, thank you. Appreciate it.